Hello YouTube, my name is John from Vulgar Kitten Studios and welcome back to part 7 of how to make a video game. And in this lesson what we're going to do is we're going to actually implement damage and make it where we can kill each other, or we can kill our tank AIs and they can kill us back. And really all we're going to be doing, we're not going to be adding any new scripts, we're just going to be editing some that we already have. And so let's just go ahead and do that. So I'm going to open up MonoDevelop, and the first one that I'm going to do, I'm going to actually correct a mistake that I made in stats. We don't want to pass in an integer into our damage void, we want to pass a float. And that's because our current HP is actually a float. If we did this right here, then we get a typecasting error, and really, floats make things better. Floats are floaty. And alright, so enough of that. We're going to go ahead and create a new method, and we're going to call this void area effect, or area damage maybe, I don't know. But we are going to do our damage system in a little bit non-traditional way. You may have seen people do damage systems with raycasting, which is all fine and good if it was reliable, but it's just simply not reliable, or at least not with Unity free. I don't know how it is with Pro. So what I'm going to be using is the overlap sphere method, and what I'll do is pass in this vector3 and call that location, and we'll also need a float for the radius at which it can destroy things, and we'll need to get a collider array, and we'll call that objects in range, and that is going to be equal to physics dot overlap sphere, and the sphere is going to be at the location and at the radius. Get rid of that colon there. And I don't know why it's red. My IntelliSense can be a little bit weird sometimes. But now, okay, so we have an array, and we need to loop through that array, so we'll say for each, and for each game object, well, not game object, for each collider, because we're using a collider type, for each collider call in objects in range. Then we'll use if call.tag is equal to, first of all, we'll set up our mine destruction, because we want to be able to shoot mines, and we'll check if our mines have, or whatever we hit has the tag mine. If it does, then we'll get a reference to our mine script. Just call that m and say call.getComponent and mine, so that way we can access its information, or its public information anyway. And we'll actually need to add in a area damage method in there too, and we don't have it for right now, but I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there. And we'll just pass in our transform.position and 1f for the radius. Finally, we'll need to start the coroutine, so start coroutine m.explosion, or explosion effects, and that should be an enumerator. Let me just make sure it is. Okay, cool. And finally, we'll just destroy our game object. So game object.destroy, and we'll destroy this game object. And if is player, because we checked on a boolean for our player and enemy projectiles. And if this player is true, then we'll say if our call.tag is equal to enemy, or string enemy, enemy. We'll need to get a reference to the stats script, so stats is equal to call.getComponent stats. Actually, matter of fact, let's try like this. Let's say call.gameObject.sendMessage. Send message. and damage and damage for the damage. And that should work, actually. And then after that, we will say GameObject.destroy and ourselves. So there we go. And now we'll want to make sure that we're outside of this. So we'll say else. If it's an enemy bullet, we'll have to check the tag. So we'll say if call.tag is equal to player. And then we'll say call.send or call.gameObject.send message. And matter of fact, we can probably do that just straight off of the collider, but we'll use GameObject just to be safe. And we'll send the message to the damage method and pass in our damage. And that should be it for the method. Now all we need to do is just call it in our update function, and we'll just do that outside of everything. So we'll say area damage, and we'll pass in transform.position for the location and damage radius for the radius. Alright, and so now let's go ahead and work on the mine. And we'll go down to the bottom of the script and set up a public void, because it does need to be public so it can be accessed by the projectile. We'll call that area damage, and we'll pass in a vector3 location and a float radius. And we'll need to get our collider array, collider objects in range, and that is equal to physics.overlap sphere, location, and radius. And now we're actually going to say if live, so we'll only perform this if the mine is live. Then we'll loop through our array. For each collider, call in objects in range, and we'll say call.send message damage, and because it's a mine, we're just going to pass in 100 because we want to destroy it completely. And that's all we want to do for that. We don't actually want to destroy the object in here, but we are going to call this in our explode method. So we'll come up to our explode method, and right after the fuse runs out, area damage, and for our area damage we'll use our transform.position, and we only want the radius to be 1f, which is going to be the size of our sphere collider. And also we will need to go into our on trigger enter, and we'll say other.gameObject.send message. Well, we'll just call the area damage, and we'll transform dot position and 1f, and that should be enough to do it right there. And that actually needs to happen before we start the coroutine, so that way we can go ahead and apply the damage and then explode. And so let's just go ahead and go back into Unity. looks like we got some errors here. So radius does not compute. It's because I spelled it wrong. And so, go ahead and go into our game here. And we're getting nothing. But they can hit me, apparently. And let's ditch the send message method, and instead we're actually going to communicate with the script directly. So we'll go back into our projectile script, and anywhere where it says call that game object send message, we're going to get rid of that and say call, or we'll get a reference to our stats. Stats is equal to call dot get component stats, and stat dot damage. Well, this is why we need to make this public. And also in the mine we are causing the explosion effects, so let's check the explosion effects. It is public, and that is public. So let's go back into projectile. Let's try it with the send message method. Go back into Unity. And it does seem to have slowed my system down quite a bit. So I'm actually going to pause the video and I'm going to try it with the other way and just replace everything, and I'll show you. Okay. Yes, so I realize now that actually we need to tag our enemies as enemy, and just apply that. Enemy, all that, yep. And also this grabbing the script directly does appear to be a little bit more efficient, because send message was slowing down my computer. I didn't expect that kind of behavior, but it was slowing my frame rate substantially. So all I'm doing is in the enemy is I'm getting a reference to the stats. So make a new variable stats and get the component off of the collider that we're the index of the collider that we're looping through. Check if it's null. If it's not, and then just apply the damage directly by calling stats.damage, and then apply the damage that's on the projectile. Same thing with the mine. The mine is just grabbing the stats component off of the collider, and then applying the damage directly through the stat script through its public method. And so that should be working now. And now we can definitely destroy enemies a lot quicker. And bullets are hitting our mines. Now all we need to do is actually set up some explosion effects and destroy ourselves. So I'm going to grab an explosion prefab. So we'll go into Warfx, Effects, and Explosions, and test a couple of these out here. Yeah, it looks quite snazzy. And that's the smoke small. So I'll expand this out here. Smoke small. Explosive smoke small. Okay. And first of all, I'll just grab the enemy and grab explosive smoke small, wherever it's at, put that right here and apply. And for the player, same thing, explosive smoke small and apply. Now we'll see if we can die. And we're still not able to die. To save on time, I'm going to pause the video again and see what the deal is. Okay, the deal is that I completely forgot to write in the explosion logic into the stat script, so sorry about that. But we do need a way to actually instantiate an explosion, and that's why we have that bool explode there. First thing that we need to do is make a new method and call that explode. Explode. And in here we'll transform.instantiate our, well, that was an error in syntax, our explosion, and our transform.position, and our transform.rotation. And then we'll just destroy our game object. So game object dot destroy game object. And well, I already had that method. Okay, so Xnay on that, we just need to actually put the logic in our update function. Wow, I must be getting tired. We need to put the logic in our update function to check our current HP and see if that is less than or equal to 0. And if that is the case, then we'll set explode to true. And if explode is true, so if explode, and we need to make that equal. If explode is true, then we will explode and set the explode equal to false, which really we're going to be exploding, so I don't know if we'll even need that, but just in case we don't want to instantiate more than one explosion, so we'll just explode like that. And we'll go back into Unity. And hit play. And we destroyed one tank. And we can destroy ourselves. And there's one more thing that I want to test. I'm going to turn off the AI on this guy and turn off the turret. And on the other one I'll just untick him. Just want to check the explosion radius on our mine. So I'll go over to him and come up right beside him and drop a mine. And yes, we can explode him. Okay, well, that's our damage system. And before I go, I actually want to make maybe some difficulty settings. So I'm going to go into prefabs and grab our player bullet, and I'm going to find the projectile and ramp the damage down to 10. And for the enemy, I also want to ramp that down, but not as much. I will, let's see, enemy bullet, I'll ramp it down to about 20, and we'll see how hard it is to actually destroy one another. Well, first I need to turn on our AI and turret and turn our other enemy back on. And it's moderate difficulty. Probably could use some tweaking here and there. Probably might like move speed, projectile speed, bullet damage, you can just mess with the settings and figure out what kind of difficulty modes you want. But other than that, that does it for our damage system. So thank you for watching and have a good one. I'll see you in the next one.